Hey y'all, welcome to the Big Mustard Couch podcast where I talk about everything wrestling related. I will be giving my candid feedback on wrestling news, hot takes, booking decisions, and where stories can go. As a new YouTuber, if you guys can like, share, and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. My hope is by the end of the year to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I can only do that with y'all coming back here and checking out my content, so I really appreciate it. Today I want to focus on Tony Khan, CM Punk, and the AEW. Last week I read on sites and it made waves around the wrestling world ultimately that CM Punk sent some talents home away from a collision taping. And one of the most notable names was Hangman Adam Page. Looking back at how this all started initially with Punk making this extemporaneous promo on Hangman Adam Page on an episode of Dynamite, it seemed to be a trickle-down effect. It seemed to be a domino effect to where Punk again started taking shots at the Elite, and then ultimately it turned into a whole thing at the All Out Media Scrum, and then he ultimately had a fight with the Elite, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, and I forgot who else was involved, but ultimately after that, Punk had to take a hiatus, from the company. Now, fast forward to 2023, Punk is back with the company. He's working solely on Collision, and ultimately he has a lot of power to which Tony Khan has invested into him. Now, while I definitely understand Tony Khan being enamored with CM Punk, ultimately giving him too much power is going to absolutely ruin the brand. Last week in the news, it came out that some folks in the AEW locker room are concerned with the relationship between Tony Khan and CM Punk, and they have every right to be. Ultimately, giving someone absolute power such as this can only ruin them. We've seen it with Hulk Hogan in the NWO and WCW. We also seen it with Hulk Hogan back in the 80s and the early 90s when he was in WWE. And this is a name that ultimately CM Punk will always reference as far as someone who has sullied the brand of wrestling or ultimately has played the politics to which that he doesn't agree with. But in all essence, he's ultimately playing politics himself. He knows he's a draw. He knows Tony Khan is going to use him as a draw, especially when they do their Chicago events. So, of course, he's going to run with that. Let's go back to thinking about when CM Punk was in WWE. In 2011, his contract was up. Apparently, he wasn't as happy as far as with the creative direction, and he did a whole work shoot on John Cena. What happened? Ultimately, he won the belt, landed his spot in WrestleMania the following year, and I'm assuming was able to have a little bit more creative freedom, but ultimately it didn't amount into dollars. Apparently, the numbers that they generated at that particular time, it didn't do well, right? So Punk, as far as this high opinion of himself, isn't necessarily warranted. I don't know, but it's apparently there's a current pattern that's playing out. And is this a work as far as to continue to promote himself or to get himself into a storyline with Hangman Adam Page eventually? Who knows? But I do know that history is repeating itself because right now he's going with the real AEW World Champion thing, and MJF is currently the AEW World Champion with his Triple B belt. Ultimately, these two will clash. They will meet again. But Punk is doing what he does as far as going into business for himself. Now, is he necessarily a bad guy? I'm not saying that at all. But when you think about the names who he sent home, one of them was Dolph Ziggler's brother, Ryan Nemeth. Ryan freaking Nemeth. I forgot that he worked there, but ultimately, apparently he still does. And CM Punk sent him away just because the man made a comment on social media. And I'm not sure if this is a matter of Punk breaking in the new guys or if it's a matter of trying to humble them or trying to be that particular locker room leader. But this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to do it, CM Punk. And I hope that you ultimately change up your style. And if you definitely want to pull guys to the side, or if you want to help them to get their shine and whatnot, there's a certain way that you could do it. And stroking your power is not necessarily it. For Tony Khan, listen, if you want I know that is a relatively, young company. If you want to continue to maintain yourself as far as being a serious competitor for WWE, These are things that you have to nip in the bud. This is why it happened back last year when CM Punk got into it with Kenny Omega and the Elite, and it was a mess. Didn't seem like there was any coming back from it. Still doesn't seem there's any coming back from it. And ultimately, you have Punk reserved for Saturdays and the Elite reserved for Wednesdays. That's not a great way to run your business, especially if you want to make money in the long term. Ultimately, you have to pull Punk back to the side. You have to, I apologize for using this term, but yank his leash a little bit, tighten it up, and just let him know who really is in charge. Like, if he wants to be a real locker room leader, having this stroke, having this power is not necessarily going to equate into a productive product for you or for the guys in the back. Listen to your wrestlers, listen to your guys, listen to your talent, because ultimately this could blow up in your face. So, again, we're going to wait to see how this plays out. Like I said, Punk, he's going, apparently he has absolute power. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. What's going to happen from this? Is there going to be another situation, which is at the end of what is it, the AEW All-In pay-per-view that's coming up? Is there going to be another situation, such as another backroom brawl that's going to take place? Is Punk going to finally humble himself and be able to, to learn how to talk to guys, or if he really wants to be that mentor or really be that leader, actually show actual leadership qualities and not do things like send guys home based off of who they're cool with or who they associate themselves with? Who knows? But Tony Khan, you have to get a hold of this, especially if you want to continue to be a serious competitor and if you don't want this to blow up in your face. That does it for this first video for the Big Mustard Couch podcast. Hope you guys return back. Again, we're going to see how this story goes, and hopefully y'all come back for more content